what you said on paper.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. Yeah, we want to thank our sponsor, the Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Also want to thank Cruz Construction for their continued support, as well as the MAMLEO leadership and their members. Again, folks, if you want to support at the Round Table with MAMLEO to support this broadcast, Pastor Hobbs, what is that?
$ capital BPRTB. That's $ capital BPRTB.
All right. Again, well, we are pleased to welcome back part of the staff. He is now an honorary member of At the Round Table with MAMLEO, City Councilor Ed Flynn. First, I want to thank you. Glad to see you back, and hope the family as well, for your continued advocacy on behalf of not just the constituents that you represent in your district. You work more like an at-large counselor than a district counselor, in the fact that you're out there advocating for things that are right. And one of the things that has been sticking in people's craw of late is this budget, sir, and why there's been such a pushback to an audit and oversight of taxpayer money. This is not the mayor's money, the councilor's money. This is the taxpayer's money, and why there's been such a pushback to having that money being looked at.
Well, thank you, Larry, and I'm honored to be here with MAMLEO and have great respect for this organization. But to answer your question directly, yes, there has been a lot of pushback from city council colleagues not having this audit. This audit was pushed by myself and City Councilor Murphy, Aaron Murphy, and city councilors didn't want us to go forward with it. Initially, they said we have a similar audit, which we do have an audit, but this is a more
probing,
more probing
operational, right?
Operational audit, and it looks at making sure the money we receive, that the programs actually are working, and accounting for every dollar that we receive and spend, and making sure that it is doing the job it's supposed to. I don't think we're doing that. There was pushback, and city councilors did not want to look under the hood of a car to see what was wrong with the car. They just wanted us to continue driving the car. And I know it's politically incorrect to challenge the administration and ask these detailed questions, but that's my job, and I can't apologize for it. And I just think residents want transparency, they want accountability, they want fiscal discipline. When your property taxes are raised 2 consecutive years, double digits, you have to ask difficult questions. Where is the money? Is it being spent appropriately?
And let me just on that point, Council, because I still own property in the city. In the last year, per quarter, on just one property alone, has gone up over 7. That's over $2,000 that I have to come up with. Well, we know that most people that are homeowners, they've got to pass it on. But I want to just probe into a little bit more, and the rest of the crew is going to dive in here. When the city is facing a huge financial deficit, wouldn't a prudent thing to be to find out where the money is spent, if it's making a difference, so that we can reallocate it to where it would do better, rather than ignore we have a problem? Because the budget is almost $5 billion, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have a spending problem more than anything, right?
I believe we do have a spending problem. And you have to, in my opinion, you have to be responsible for every dollar you receive and every dollar you spend. And people were arguing with me the other day about grants, federal city money that we're giving out to various parties. Well, when your property taxes go up double digits for 2 consecutive years, you can't give away free money. You can't give away cash to residents to have some type of celebration. you have to cut those programs. You have to watch what you're spending. And the programs that you are spending money on, you have to ensure that it's working. And if it's not working, you have to make difficult decisions not to continue or not continue with that particular program. But we're in a very difficult economic place right now. Things have changed dramatically with Boston's economy, with New England's economy, and just the spending, the ongoing spending, does have to stop.
Think of your typical family, right? Your typical family where they're getting hit with that 13% increased tax bill. They're thinking, okay, I'm going to need to cut here. I can't go, get my coffee in the mornings, maybe.
Gas,
whatever it may be, right? Trying to trade between like gas, groceries, whatever it may be. And so that's something that, families are asking them to do, but that just be fair for our residents and the people that have to pay, our taxpayers that pay the taxes in the city, should be able to see that the city can be fiscally responsible as well. Good question. Actually, a good question that's been raised as well is that there's been a lot of federal funding that's actually been left on the board and that's for just lack of filing paperwork, whatever it may be, that could have very well filled some of this budget gap and so forth. What are kind of the next steps that can be taken to, one, help? Is there a way to continue to push for this independent operational audit? Is there a way for us to get that transparency that the people actually very, very well deserve?
I think that's a great question, where we go from here. And you're right, we received about $560 million in federal funds through ARPA, which is the pandemic relief money. And I don't think we've done a very good job of being responsible with the money. Other cities and towns across America put the money to roads and fixing infrastructure. Schools.
Yep, saw a lot of that.
We didn't do that type of work. We gave a lot of the money out for grants or for first-time home buyers, which we support. But I just think giving money away to residents is not the answer. The money has to be invested in the neighborhoods, fixing potholes, fixing schools, fixing playgrounds, fixing parks, supporting elderly. And I just have a fundamentally disagreement with my colleagues about how you spend taxpayer money. It's not our money.
I'm glad you phrase it as taxpayer. That's who it belongs to.
Yeah, it's not the money of elected officials. It's the money of taxpayers. And they would say to me, well, Ed, it's federal money. Why are you worried about
federal money? Where do you think that comes from?
I said, well, that's still out of your out of your paycheck.
And that's a good point, Counselor, because you even have, for example, Mass Daily News was talking about how Wu's office had promoted this program for payments to wellness support for LGBTQ plus migrants in Boston, but then not only days later started calling it inappropriate in terms of grants programs that are out there. So that again highlights, right, how many other grants programs are out there where money's being given out and they're not really being checked to be, okay, what's the effectiveness of this? What's the use of this? What's the purpose? Is it the best spending, right, of our taxpayers' money? Because like most cities, Boston's revenue, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, a good chunk of it comes from our taxpayer base.
That's exactly right. In over 50% of the property in Boston is tax exempt because it's hospitals, colleges, universities, nonprofits.
So, Counselor, why aren't we at this time, right? And I think Jamal is still on the line. Why aren't we revisiting this White Stadium? That money that's been allocated, the building hasn't been erected yet. Why aren't we pulling back that? Matter of fact, it looks like they're increasing funding to that project in a time when you're cutting back or you're increasing the burden on the taxpayer. That seems to be the only option. Why a private entity is getting all of this funding of taxpayer dollars when the taxpayers are hurting and they can't afford any more of it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the city is on the hook right now for at least 125 million, 130 million.
135 million.
135 million. I didn't support the project. I don't support the project. When you're cutting, we're cutting school teachers and paraprofessionals, which is like an assistant to the teacher. But when you're cutting school teachers and you're cutting paraprofessionals, $50 million deficit at BPS. And on the other hand, we're privatizing a part of Franklin Park for a
private entity.
A private entity. I
And
don't support that.
And I think you also raised the issue too about alcohol going to be being served in that institute. Dr. Bradley, your face is. Before we get this call, I want to
we
get
had
with
that
you because
discussion about
either you
the
having
stadium.
a moment over there or you need to go to the men's room.
No. I'm just trying to figure out how does one fall short $50 million when you have a $1.7 billion budget.
Well, and also they've left $280 million in federal funding on the table that potentially could get lost because a good chunk of it is they're just not filing the paperwork that needs to be filed. I mean, that's another thing that they looked at too, right?
That's
So
correct.
it appears to me that
280 million.
we're not being very good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. I mean, I think that's obvious. And the question becomes, what do we need to do to become better stewards? And what do you need, or the same people on the council need from the citizens to say, hey, listen, we need people there to better monitor the money that we're giving you. You know, because it seems to me that you have a segment of the council, and I don't, you're there, I don't know it well enough, but I'm just looking from the outside in, as a segment of the council who seem to be sycophants. And they're going to do whatever she says. And this is what happens when you have a a person running for office.
Sounds like the federal government.
Exactly. With no competitor there. You know what I mean? She feels like, hey, I got marching orders. I can do what I want to do here.
Right.
It has to stop.
Yeah.
It has to stop because, it appears that having a fair and honest and complete audit of the operation, not the money, where the money is going, who's there that should not be there, who's there because wink, wink, nod, nod. I know my friend who knows a friend who knows a friend. Because it seems like to me some under-table stuff is happening here that needs to be addressed, and I don't know how you address it as a councilor.
I think that's a great question, and that's how do we move forward from here? The city brought the budget for FY27 to the city council. We're debating it now, and there's a critical opportunity for the public to weigh in about what their priorities are. We've heard what the mayor's priorities are. We know what the city council priorities are, which are the same as the mayor's. But what is the priority of the residents?
Right, but historically that gets ignored, right? Council, every time you hear the phones light up, so we're going to jump into some of these calls and hear from the taxpayers.
Yeah, the
right?
taxpayers, yeah.
Good morning, Jamal. Welcome to the roundtable. You have a question or comment for the councilor?
Yes, indeed. Good morning, Councilor.
Good morning, Jamal. It's good to hear from you.
Yes, indeed. And so, as this conversation kind of began from the whole, thing about the budget, can you please explain to folks, like the audit that is done, what they were talking about, the folks that opposed it, the audit that is normally done every year, and the audit that you are proposing, and give us the nuances. And then the other thing too is, if what I'm hearing is correct too, is it also true that the reparations task force has now been essentially defunded?
Yeah, let me answer the first question, and I just took some notes here because I wanted to provide as much information as I could. So myself and City Councilor Murphy, we filed a resolution calling for an independent performance audit of city operations, and that matter was blocked by Councilor Durkin before we could even bring it to the floor. We refiled it and we discussed it. It was debated and it did not pass. During the debate, several colleagues argued the city already conducted audits similar to that, but that's not accurate. What we called for is a performance audit of city operations, an audit that takes a deeper look at how taxpayer dollars are actually spent, how departments are operating, whether staffing levels make sense, whether services are being delivered efficiently and effectively. And one thing I want to stress is that they're two different audits, and we probably could have done a better job of explaining the difference between the two, but we didn't make that argument, we didn't make that case, but they are two different audits.
I'm curious, has the city ever had this type of independent performance audit or operational audit done in the past? Something that you can kind of go off for precedence, possibly.
They have had audits like this done in the past that we recommended at different times for different reasons. But I do think residents, for some reason, and I know what the reason is, but residents are asking for us to be more accountable and responsible, and to demonstrate that transparency and accountability. You don't really see it measured in any particular poll, but I do know, because I work this job 7 days a week. Residents are asking these tough questions to city councilors, and they're not just going to accept the status quo any longer, in my opinion. And they want answers. They want us to do our due diligence, and they just don't want us to say, well, you know, that's the mayor's budget. Maybe you should ask the mayors about what is happening. No, they want us as elected officials, as city councilors, to do our due diligence and hold the city administration accountable.
Jamal, stand by. I want to grab the other call. Good morning, Dick, because I want to get these lines. Welcome back to the roundtable. You have a question for the councilor?
Yeah, I have a question for the councilor. And my question
Ditko?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, and my question goes, how come the 13th City Council, along with the mayor, hasn't, I don't know, yet, give T. Michael Thomas, the People's Academy, the funding and the resources needed? Because this man has put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the community, into the program that he has helped build to make sure that there is also other alternatives to college. And also, why do you politicians like to lie so much about when it comes to like a budget like i.e. White Stadium, when the original budget was under 200 and yet it blew up to over 200?
Well, thank you, caller. And let me answer the first one on T. Michael. I support T. Michael. He called into the show a couple weeks ago. He was a little upset with me, and I spoke to him immediately after that. He asked me to do something, which I did.
He's on the line, so we'll get
okay.
from him personally.
And so he asked me if I would communicate with the mayor and request a meeting, and I know he met with Reverend Culpepper as well. I support T. Michael in his proposal. I don't necessarily have the authority to make it happen. I think that's more in the mayor's hands to determine if that program should receive city resources and support. If it was up to me, I would support it. But
Well, you know, it's ironically when you said they were flush with cash when they could have supported it. Now they'll
Yep.
tell you they don't have the funding to do it. So,
Well, or even when they don't have the funding, you have it in the news already, right?
Yeah.
Where they're putting up all these different grant programs,
Yeah.
passing on all sorts of money, and then days later retracting and saying, "Oh, well, I guess that wasn't very appropriate of us to do so. It was inappropriate."
Since his name has been invoked, T. Michael is on the line. You can answer for yourself. Good morning, T. Welcome back to the roundtable.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
good morning, T. Michael.
Henry Thomas of the People's Representative to the People's Academy. How's that? Good to see you again, Counselor. We saw each other twice this week.
Yeah, it was good to see you at City Hall too. You're continuing to advocate, and that's what you should be doing, T. Michael.
Yeah, so now a couple of things I wanted to add here. We're not asking to sit with the mayor to ask for funding that we did not work for, that was promised to us. I will just name two projects, the Millennium Project and the Eden's Development Project, which we have proof of. We took part in we had an agreement. We did our due diligence. Promises was made. It was not kept. My second thing is when it comes to funding, look at the skyscraper. Oh, look at all the cranes. Where is that linkage money? And Counselor, I know you agree with me. It's being misappropriated. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. Where is that accountability for that money?
Those are good questions. The linkage money and the way we spend money on housing through linkage and job training, as you know, through linkage. We need to be more the city needs to be more transparent with that. I think there has to be also a role for residents to weigh in with their opinion on where the money should go on linkage. I don't think we do that right now, and I think it's important to get the voices of residents into city government. They know better, in my opinion, than city officials on where this money should be allocated for. And I just want to recommend that you continue advocating for what you believe in, and I'll do whatever I can to be helpful. I know we're up against a very difficult climate, but I'm not sure how much support there is at City Hall, but we're not giving up.
Well, considering Michelle Wu ran on a platform of transparency and accountability, and there's how many hundreds of memes out there with her talking about accountability and transparency, but when it comes time to put pen to paper or actually take action on actual supporting transparency or supporting accountability, we're not seeing it, right? That's what I'm hearing.
That's what we're seeing in the city budget also, is some elected officials are not asking the difficult questions during the budget process about transparency and accountability. And we had hearings yesterday, 2 hearings yesterday at the city council, and
About the budget?
about the budget.
Okay.
It was a ghost town in there.
Oh, so these are public hearings.
These are public hearings.
Do you have so schedule-wise, anyone can come, right, to attend the public hearings for the budget?
Yeah, anyone can come. The public is invited, and the public is invited to testify. And now we're having that the public can testify sometimes before the start of the hearing or in the middle of the hearing. You don't necessarily have to wait the whole time until the hearing is over, and then the public testifies.
Where's the schedule for it, or when's the next one?
It's Monday.
Oh, okay.
We have two sessions each day, like one at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then the other at 2 in the afternoon. And each time the public is invited. Now what I will do is I'll post the schedule on my social media this weekend.
Great.
And encourage the public to attend. And I think it's important to ensure that the voice of the public is heard.
Thank you, T. Appreciate it.
Thank you, T. Michael. And you
Can
can
I say
testify
one last thing?
over social media, over Zoom as well, or over email, but you can also testify in person.
Can I make one last comment about what you said, Counselor?
Go ahead, T. Michael.
Yes, the linkage fund that I'm glad you mentioned, that is used or designated, part of it is for job training. When you look at, like I said, I'm only just naming two development projects. Millennium, which is $1.3 billion construction jobs, Eden's development, etc. And on paper and whatever, but we're the only construction training component. Promises was made to us, but everyone else reap the reward. Great show, and I will be listening. Thank you.
Thank you, T. Michael.
All right. So, Counselor, again, as I reiterate, I don't think we have a money problem as much as we have a spending problem, right? If you look around Boston, you see cranes everywhere. There has been a growth of population, in my opinion, some too much, right? So the property taxes should not be, because there's been an increase. It's not like a small town where there hasn't been any infrastructure. We've got every year, tourism is a huge part of Boston, and we've got FIFA here was going to be a huge cash infusion into Boston on top of the normal ones like the marathon. Again, I just think we have a poor management at the top with this mayor and her staff. Like you said, we're leaving money on the table, as Helen alluded to.
Well, actually, it's well reported in the Mass Daily News.
Right.
Approximately $280 million in grants. $20 million was actually already guaranteed for Roxbury Streets repair for 3 years. And the only thing that the WU's office needed to do was sign it and return it by 2025. Didn't even do that.
But we're also still continuing to spend money on bike lanes. People in Mattapan have said they don't want that bus lane
Right.
coming through there. So we're spending money on projects that were not wanted during good times, let alone now during the bad times when we need to be cutting things. And Council, I don't think this gets enough attention. The budget for the school department is the largest spending of the city's budget, almost $2 billion.
That's correct.
And we're saying we have a shortfall, and we're shuttering schools. The population is decreasing. Where is the money going? And maybe is that why they don't want anyone looking into this?
And enrollment of students is down significantly.
Right.
We got rid of the MCAS examination for students, so we don't really have a good way to judge them academically.
Yeah, and then didn't the mayor say that she was going to ignore Fs and failing grades when
Yeah,
we're looking
gonna
at
wa-
the
a waiver.
third,
Yes, that's
right?
what I can't believe. Like exactly, being able to eliminate Fs as part of the average, so that way
As if
it
that
looks
didn't
better. Yes.
exist anymore. But they're still there,
Yeah.
right? Just because she got rid of the Fs doesn't mean that we're not still doing these graduating seniors a disservice
Dr.
when they're
Bradley.
not equipped.
This is in your
To
wheelhouse,
graduate.
education. I need you to weigh in on this,
On the
brother.
same wavelength.
Well, I'm sitting back here and I'm saying, so what is the undercurrent reasoning for this type of decision?
Because then she can say that they can graduate if she
No,
gets rid of the Fs,
No,
right?
I think it's more than what meets the eye. I'm thinking a little bit deeper. I'm thinking that, number one, I want to ask the counselor, do we see a movement away from the city based on demographics? Do we see people moving out?
I think we're seeing working families, middle class families moving out of the city, and we're seeing a lot of young professionals in the city. We're seeing a lot of low income residents because
Economic pushed out.
yeah. Many people going to Brockton or Randolph or other areas of the South Shore and the North Shore. But the enrollment is down significantly in Boston Public Schools, and that is one of the reasons schools are closing and merging. And people, I don't think people have faith in the Boston Public School system.
Should come with a 51A.
Yeah.
And I'm also looking at what is the impact on the Boston Public School system budget? What does the charter school system has on that budget? What impact it has on the budget?
I don't necessarily think it's the charter schools. Know what I think the main issue is. One of the main issues we have at BPS, so many people working at the bowling building.
Thank you, Counselor.
And they're assistant superintendents, the deputy assistant,
And they have
superintendents.
assistants to the
They
assistants.
do, and they're making good money, and that is hurting. I think that's hurting the city, and also our budget for transportation is
Huge.
Ridiculous.
unbelievable.
It would be cheaper to buy every parent a car.
But
Yeah.
where I'm going here is that there's a silent monster that's operating under the table, and that monster is gentrification.
Yes.
And it's gentrification on several levels. You know, we think of gentrification, well, it's just a race thing. No, it's not. It also can be an economical thing.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? It can be an economical thing it could be used to move people out. I'm thinking about San Francisco. Because Boston looks like it's going in the way that San Francisco went 20, 30 years ago, where it became more expensive to live in there. And now what you have is that you have, if you're not a movie star or a high-earning individual, you're working 2 or 3 jobs just to live in the city. And I think Boston is going in that direction. And also what is happening is that there's a decrease in the commercial property because of the fact that a lot of companies are using online reporting for work, so they don't need the office buildings,
sure,
and
a lot
so
of that's
therefore a
moved
lot of that
away.
money is moving away.
That's
So
exactly
a lot of
right.
areas.
But also to that point, Dr. Bradley, you know, in these tough economic times, I think, and it again something that doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. The superintendent of schools, Superintendent Skipper, is the highest paid salary of any employee in the city, including the mayor. Just got an almost $80,000 pay raise, one person. So why isn't she sharing in these tough economic times as the homeowners? Well, if I get an $80,000 pay raise, I don't have a problem paying my property taxes, right? But if my salary, I'm on a fixed income or even a pension from the city, and I get a 1 or 2% pay raise, that's not going to help me keep up with what the city is extracting out of my pocket.
But even with that,
That's right.
Even if you have paid your mortgage, you have rectified or settled the issue with the mortgage company, you can still possibly lose your property
Because of the
you
tax.
can't do the tax.
Excess.
Well, even speaking of cars, there was that report of I believe it was Chong, who was found to have been given a city car that he essentially leaves in his driveway, and also works from home and was orchestrating his own overtime.
Well,
Right?
yeah,
Looking
no,
at that.
that's true. I think Dr. Bradley, you you hit it on the head. Is the main issue? The commercial property in Boston has declined significantly. $100 million building now is being sold in downtown Boston for $20 million. And so
They get a tax break.
so $20 million, that's not a lot of money. You could go out and buy a building for $20 million if you wanted to, if you were able to come up with
$20
the
million.
money.
But also to that point, Council, you also had people down in the Back Bay who sold a $20 million. They're paying less for the $20 million condominium than what it's valued at.
That's right. And if you, but for the value of the downtown building, so because the building decreased in value, they're paying so much less on property
That's
taxes
right.
now. So now the burden would shift on
The
residents.
Right, but to that point, and we're going to get these comments. Then people who've lived in their homes aren't getting that same benefit,
That's
right? Because they haven't sold their home, but their property values, on top of it, the city went out and reassessed what their property was worth, and then taxed on the taxes for that. But a property downtown that is a business, it got a depreciation because they're saying there's not many people living there. So if I had a multifamily and I just didn't let my tenants in there, I couldn't say it's worth less because I'm not generating any revenue from it.
Well, if you're right. If you're a retired city worker and you live in Boston, you own a home, maybe the home's valued, assessed at $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't make you a millionaire. It makes you poor, actually, because you're only getting a pension of $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
I see them at the people at the store, city retired people, and they're trying to figure out if they're going to buy a loaf of bread or a thing of milk.
And that's actually, and we talk about expenses and costs and so forth, even looking at, like for example with this case, right, with the Officer O'Malley case, and you're looking at civil lawsuits. I don't know if you're aware, Councilor Flynn, but the supervisor that was assigned to the firearms discharge team, right, Sergeant Richard Lewis, was actually found to have committed fraud confirmed by the courts, the high courts in Massachusetts, and someone like that taints the whole investigation right there. And then you have now the city's facing pending civil litigation as a result of this case. We're spending money and dollars into this, right? That's another thing. Like, that's something that I think that the public should be aware of as well in terms of the operational side of things. How do these costs, like litigation costs and trial costs, come into it when we have situations where we know that someone appointed under Wu, under Cox, and so forth, and Owens, where we have someone who's been found to have committed fraud and confirmed by the courts, who's heading up an investigation that could resulting in civil litigation and potentially civil liability for the city? That's just not very smart thinking, right?
Yeah, I think there's probably a half a dozen of serious cases that the law department is dealing with that Boston's going to be on the hook to pay for significant money to people that filed the lawsuits. I'm trying to get that information, but I think it's going to be significant this year and over the next several years.
So with all that said, with all those potential outcome of outpouring of money, and the fact that your commercial property is decreasing in taxes, so that source is pretty much gone.
And the colleges and
the
business
colleges
are not paying
doing anything. That in itself lends itself to the rationale for having an audit.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
That is the
Yes.
support system right there for the common, most prudent thing to do is to have an audit to look at the operation. Why? Because your dollars are going out faster than they're coming in.
That's
You know what I
correct.
mean? And
Yeah,
you're shifting,
and why?
and you're shifting the dollars that you would collect from the commercial to the residential, making it almost impossible.
And
to
Dr.
stay.
Bradley, here's some breaking news. Homeowners are having to do that now, right? Shift
Yeah.
funds from other places to pay these taxes, the higher gases. Let's grab these comments Pastor Hobbs has.
Sure. So one is from Michelle, who's on our main web page, and one she says, "Good morning." She says, "Woo."
Good morning.
Whose idea was it to take our roads and make them into sidewalks as huge roundabouts in the middle of the street? And property taxes are out of control, as well as another person said, it seems like she's cashing out.
Yeah. I mean, she's running for Senate. I tell people that all the time. She's
Well-
waiting for that position to open up.
And we looked at the fact that it's been reported by WBUR, by BU, by the Boston Herald. Bike lanes are costing us about $2.5 million a mile. Bike
Yeah,
lanes. In the
yeah,
city of
and then
Boston.
nobody's using them.
Yeah.
Jamal, you want to weigh in here? You're on.
Yeah, well, the only other thing that I wanted to, talk about was the reparations thing, because I know a lot of people have been, talking about what has been defunded and what has been funded, and y'all brought up already before the LGBTQ migrant like makeovers and health and wellness type of
yoga
things.
mats and all that.
Yeah, that type of stuff. But then, from what I'm understanding, the reparations task force has now been defunded. And also, too, I'll leave you with this. I finally figured out why T. Michael calls you guys all the time. Because you're coppers.
Get it?
Because
Coppers, coppers.
Okay.
Come on, that's like a game.
I'll let you respond, Counselor.
That went right over my head.
Yeah.
I missed that. Sorry about that, Jamal.
Well, speaking of coppers, right? We know that that's a topic that's been in the news, right,
Yep.
with regards to Officer O'Malley, and again, I would say when you have someone like Sergeant Richard Lewis, who's heading up the investigation for the firearms discharge, right, as a supervisor, someone who's Brady and giggle impaired, how can anyone get a fair shake, right, in a case like that?
Yeah, and just to be transparent on that, the city council voted. Actually, it was the leadership of Brian Worrell and Reverend Culpepper, but the city council voted recently this week, 13-0, to release the video, the body cam video. I supported that. I do think, in my opinion, I know people might disagree with me, but I do think the district attorney should have gone to the grand jury before making an arrest. I do think that would have been more appropriate. I do respect other people's that they may have a difference of opinion with me, but I did vote in favor of releasing the body camera. And I do want to acknowledge the leadership of Brian Worrell and Reverend Culpepper. Reverend Culpepper is asking difficult questions.
He's an attorney.
Yeah, and he just doesn't take an answer and accept the answer. He's diligent and he's battle tested and he's fighting for what he believes is right. Sometimes I agree with him. Sometimes I don't agree with him. But he's doing his job.
So, Counselor, I want to just quickly. I want to. Excuse me, Helen. How long have you been a counselor now?
It's going on 9 years.
So you've been in several administrations, including the Menino. Have you ever seen this bad with the city budget? I know there's always been cutback, but have you ever seen this bad of management of money? And they got a gift that most other mayors, I know Mayor Walsh did not, and as well, with this infusion of this COVID money, that should have been a bridge to try to help you get through that. But also, isn't there a rainy day fund? Why aren't they tapping into that?
The one that Senator Collins mentioned that could have been used to offset the
Exactly,
increase in
the
real estate
taxes. Why aren't we tapping into that?
there-
That's what it's for, right?
Yeah, there is a rainy day fund, and that is used for very difficult times.
It's pouring out, Council.
which are in. And it can be used for supporting city services, residents. And Senator Collins has made a recommendation, which I agree, maybe using some of that money to address some of the challenges we have in the spending. But I think if we do that, we have to be accountable and responsible, and not just give the money into the city budget and then let the city administration think what's best. Spend it on
$18
what they
million
want.
on weight
But
loss.
not
Yeah.
even that. What about the $280 million in federal funding that is on the chopping block for now? And a lot of it is just waiting for paperwork to be submitted, waiting for signatures, whatever it may be. Is somebody taking a second look at that to make sure that, hey, we have money on deck that we could use that is coming to the city, guaranteed, whatever it may be, but we just need to submit the paperwork.
Yeah, a lot of the transportation issues, there was a major change in personnel with the resignation of Franklin Hodge, who was kind of the chief of streets. And once he left, he brought his senior team with him out of city government. So that office really has been on hold, and now major infrastructure, transportation projects are being reviewed individual really by the mayor, and it is time consuming.
So to that point, can you clarify for our listening audience, who is it still going on with these tough times, these free buses, right? That cost, and who actually, and the taxpayers foot the bill regardless of whether it comes from the city or state, but is the city actually writing a check to the state for that bus, and that continues during these tough economic times?
That's exactly right. There is no free bus ride. The bus ride is paid by the residents of Boston. Boston writes a check to the MBTA for various lines in the city, and whether you support it or you're against it, there is no free bus for anyone. It's taxpayer money that we give to the MBTA, and I know it does impact many neighborhoods, communities of color, but I think it should be. I don't think people should get a free ride unless you're a senior, a person with disabilities. And maybe for several other reasons, but I don't think we just can give free money away.
Tough economic times, everyone has to share in the burden, right?
Yeah.
If you can't afford it, it's just like if you can't afford to put gas in your car, you can't drive.
Right.
Do we
you
know-
don't get to go to all your neighbors and siphon it out of their tank.
Do we even know, like, if people are even using the buses? I mean, just like those bike lanes, I hardly ever see anyone use them. All I see is when people are trying to get their families to hospitals having such a tough time. I've seen more ambulances get stuck because of those bike lanes than people actually using the bike lanes. So I wonder if the free buses, is that the same situation? How many people actually use it? Is it in terms of the cost?
Actually, I've been around Mattapan Square, and I will tell you, the buses are always full. They're being used.
Right.
The bike lanes, on the other hand, no. I've been in Cambridge, Somerville, where every morning you see people zipping down those. And it depends on the neighborhood in Boston, but again, I'm pretty sure.
But we don't. This is not Florida, right?
Yeah.
At some point, there's
Exactly.
snow in them. They're not. They don't
The
make
winter
sense.
time, yes, exactly.
They
won't
don't make sense. But again, we're cutting back, and people are having to share the burden. Everyone should share in it. If we don't have the money, it's a good idea when we're flush with cash. It doesn't sound like that's where the city is right now. That seems like the White Stadium project. It seems like there are things, and I know in a $1.8 billion budget in the schools, the first instinct is to lay off the people that they need the most at the bottom, rather than trimming some of that fat at the top, where you're giving the superintendent an $80,000 pay raise, and there's top heavy down there. Like you see, you have superintendents who have assistants to the assistants.
Right. We have to fundamentally change how we're managing the city money, taxpayer money, and the status quo can't continue any longer. And I think we have to make some difficult financial decisions now and over the next several years. I also think people need to get back to work full time at City Hall.
So wait, what do you mean? You mean you have people that are people like Chong that are working from home and getting a non-emergency personnel getting a paid for home take-home car and not actually reporting into the office? We have more situations like that. That's unfortunate.
I go into City Hall every day, at least 6 or 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then I'll go into the community at night. And when I'm in for the City Hall for the 6 or 7 hours, let me be clear, let me be honest, it's a ghost town. The restaurant on the 8th floor of City Hall closed recently, and I said to
closed permanently?
Yeah, closed permanently.
Oh.
I said to the gentleman, I said, what happened? You guys are closed? He said, Ed, what do you mean? What are you talking about? There's no one in here. How are we going to make a profit? I said, I know.
So we're paying people, city employees that technically should be working in City Hall. We've been paying them to work from home.
Paying them to work from home, and same with the
Are they
bowling
able to do
building,
their
right?
jobs like working from home? Like if they're
I think you need to be in City Hall to do your job effectively. Especially it's about working as a team. You're learning from Dr. Bradley about his experience, and Pastor Hobbs, and learning about his experience. You can't do that over the over the Zoom.
Yeah, that's why a lot of corporations now, everyone's mandating return to office.
And they can get a free bus ride to get there. Pastor Hobbs, you have some comments?
Yes, so Michelle, who's on our main webpage, she says, this is for Councilor Flynn. She said she needs you to actually answer the question, whose idea was it to take our roads and make them into sidewalks and huge roundabouts in the middle of the street?
Whose
idea was it?
It was the cities.
The Wu
Would
administration.
that fall under
The Wu
Franklin Hodge?
administration.
Did
Yeah.
that fall under Franklin Hodge?
It was under
Transportation?
it was under Franklin Hodge, who was the chief of streets. He had a design team that made these changes, and I think we have to go back and review the work he did, because a lot of the work he did needs to be changed, because we have a lot of unsafe roads.
Scooters, right?
Yeah,
Scooters and bike lanes.
unsafe sidewalks. And pedestrians don't feel safe crossing the street. They don't feel safe in the sidewalk at times. I'm trying to regulate mopeds that are driving. I'm trying to third-party delivery mopeds where they deliver you a sandwich or a pizza. They're not stopping at red lights.
No.
They're not stopping at stop signs. They're going the wrong way up the street. I saw a guy on a moped. You probably did too. He was on the sidewalk, right, driving his moped. Right, he had a steak and cheese sandwich. He was on the cell phone talking. I don't know how the heck this guy did it.
So do we even, and also the other thing too is, right, we talk about enforcement. Do we even know if these people are even properly licensed to be operating these mopeds? And we've also had news reports of a lot of times these mopeds even sometimes are being purchased by the government and given to people, but they're not checking to make sure that people actually even are licensed to drive them in the first place.
So, Council, we're identifying the problem, because it seems like the city always goes after the low-hanging fruit, which is the taxpayers who can't push back, who don't have corporate lawyers to go in and litigate and tie things up. It's like having an unloaded gun to your head. No one knows whether there are bullets in there. But, as Dr. Bradley alluded to, I talked to a lot of our seniors, and those are the ones that concern me the most. Who said they paid off their mortgage, they're on a fixed income, they're getting less than $1,000 a month. Their tax bill comes, even with the exemptions that are for seniors and residents, it's still more than they can afford.
That's right.
To pay. So now they get behind, because now the interest and penalties accrue on that tax bill. Is there any relief for those folks? Because it doesn't sound like it.
The state senate has a relief plan that they voted on. It was led by State Senator Nick Collins.
Yeah, friend of the show.
And he did tremendous. He has a tremendous proposal for tax relief for working class residents, for seniors. I think the next step, the House would take it up. But what I would highlight is, Larry, you mentioned it. The person on a fixed income that's retired, they worked hard their entire life. They seen Boston in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s when Boston was struggling financially, economically, and now we think things are going well. And oh, by the way, there might not be a place for you because this is too expensive for you. You might be better off going down the South Shore somewhere, or even out of the state. But there has to be a place for working class people. There has to be a place in the city for retirees that helped build the city, that contributed greatly to Boston.
But also to that point, and I'm going to bring Jamal in because we're running out short on time. How are you recruiting? Because I remember recently, been over a year or so, where there was an exemption for certain professions because the salary wasn't enough to pay anyone because of what it cost to live in Boston, and they had to give exemptions to people who live outside the city, somewhere where they could afford to live. So I know I've never seen the number of police officers that are leaving so early in their career because Boston is too expensive, because the residency requirement to live here in the city of Boston. And then most city residents, city employees have to live here for their whole tenure.
That's right. And as it relates to the Boston police, we're not getting the lateral transfers from other cities and towns. The police officers, there's about 50 police officers from across the Commonwealth that came to a meeting, and before the meeting started, one police officer raised his hand and he said, do we have to be city residents to accept the job? And the person from Boston Police said, yes, you have to be a resident. And almost all of them left.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, Boston Police Department, compared to most other major cities, is one of the few departments where we have police officers and people in the Boston Police Department topping like $500,000 a year in gross salary as well. I mean, so it's not necessarily, it's a higher cost of living, but in terms of police departments, we have police departments in other parts of the country, southern states and so forth, that are making $50,000,
Yeah.
$40,000, $60,000
But the cost of living
a year.
there isn't as expensive
But
as
at the
it is
same
here.
time, it's $500,000 compared to there, right? 10 times more.
But if you're buying a home at $1 million and you've got a $6,000 a month mortgage, who wants to work till they drop every week? You know, Jamal. Before we let you go, any comments for question for the counselor?
No, just the fact that we still didn't get on to the reparations thing. So let's try to touch on that. And if what I'm hearing is true, that has been essentially defunded.
Jamal, I believe that is accurate. I believe it's either defunded or it has been cut. I don't know exactly the figures about it, but I can check when I get back later, and I can shoot you a text if that's okay.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jamal. Appreciate you, brother.
And Jamal, the other thing I was going to mention is, and Jamal knows this, I was working with Brian Worrell, and we established we're hoping to have a hearing order on OPAT. Well, we did have a hearing order on OPAT. It was led by Brian Worrell. I supported him, and we're trying to get a hearing about where is OPAT, what are they doing, how are they functioning.
And those subpoenas that were ignored, right? How are they dealing with that? Situations like those. Is there going to be accountability with that?
I think
just like the
Cavallo's having
budget
something on the
accountability.
17th where it's a kind of an open house.
We're
with
running short on
Cavallo.
time. Want to get past the hops to get this in about the fundraiser here.
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly. So our monthly telethon that we need to be able to continue to stay on the air is happening Sunday, April 26th, 4 p.m. That's our telethon from 4 to 6.
Sunday.
April 26th.
And
at
if they
4
want to
p.m.
donate now,
they can
do
go
it.
to $capital BPRTB, $capital BPRTB. That's Cash App.
Council, we've got about 2 minutes left. I want to give you a minute to, one, say thank you for always coming and making yourself available for the residents here in Boston. If they had more counselors like yourself and a few others down there who are doing what they're tasked to do, the tough job. It really isn't tough, just doing what's right, but that seems to be something that folks don't have a grasp on. Want to thank you, and any closing remarks from you, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Larry. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I have great respect for you and great respect for MAMLEO and the people in this room as well. You do an incredible job of advocating for police officers, law enforcement, of people of color, and I think that's critical. That's important. What I would say to Boston residents, and I know it's easier said than done, but you have to be engaged. You have to communicate. You have to put pressure on your city elected officials. When you see them at the store, take the opportunity to challenge them a little bit. Don't ask them about the Red Sox. Don't ask them about the weather. Don't ask them how their kids are doing. Ask them about the city budget. What are they doing to represent the residents and hold the administration accountable, fighting for school teachers or fighting for cleaner parks and safer neighborhoods? Take the opportunity to weigh in any way you can with your elected officials. Put a little bit of pressure on them. They work for the residents of Boston.
I got a better solution than that, Counselor. I think you is great. Is put your groceries in their cart and ask them to pay more than their share. Pay more than their share, and see how they like it. Right? That'll get their. What do you mean to pay more for? No.
Also, again, like, how do they find out about the public hearings? You know what I mean? Just you said
Oh, yeah,
put
the
pressure
budget
on them.
hearings.
How do we know? Like, how do we find out about when the hearings are happening?
Know what I'm going to do this weekend? I'm going to place on my Facebook and Twitter.
And share it with MAMLEO.
Yeah, share with us
And
as well.
I'll share it with MAMLEO.
Okay.
All the time, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then if you could share too, you mentioned about you filed a new ordinance to ban delivery app drivers in the city from using e-bikes and mopeds and scooters to make deliveries.
Yep.
Because I know that there's been concerns because you had that Chick-fil-A shooting in the Back Bay
the
about
Back
a month
Bay,
ago,
right.
where it was people were talking about how they were suspecting that it was actually someone who was illegal that was driving
All
a
right.
scooter that was involved.
Dr. Bradley.
Right.
What's wrong? I'm good, though.
You forgot.
We signed off.
Come on, brother. You know what? He's over there sleeping.
I'm asleep. Be blessed.
It wasn't me this time.
You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the under.